want to talk to Grandma Shishi.
All right, here is my audience. We have my family, my daughter, my husband. I'm going to go ahead and give this to him. Let's talk about guns. What would you do if someone broke into your house and had a gun? Well, the ideal situation would be for you to grab your own gun so that you could defend yourself. The robber isn't going to say, "Oh, this is a gun-free zone, my bad, I'm going to run to the kitchen real quick, grab a knife, stay here." No, that's just not how it works in real-life situations. The individual is obviously not mentally stable, and if they're breaking into your house in the first place, they're not going to be too worried about using any illegal guns or any guns for the matter. Any type of violence is not the fault of whatever weapon is being used. I grew up in a small town in Idaho where many people had at least one gun in their homes. My dad had about 6 guns, and my siblings and I each had 1 or 2 of our own guns as well. Needless to say, we were around guns growing up all the time. We often went shooting targets for family home evenings, and many families near us had similar situations. There was never any violence in our area, there weren't any shootings, yet many politicians will say guns are the issue regarding any shootings or violence with guns. An increase in gun control or banning guns will not solve violence. If you are wondering why this is important for you to know, well, let me tell you. Violence happens every day, and you might think that it's never going to happen to you. However, it really can happen anywhere. We need to be aware of the true root causes of violence and how we can overcome it. It is important to be aware of our amendment rights and what is not going to change violence. Today, I am here to state that guns are not the issue in violence, people are. I'm going to state issues that are aligned with adding more gun control, what the real issue in violence is, the factors that come into play regarding the real issues in violence, and what actions should take place in preventing more violence in the future. Many politicians today are trying to ban guns and threatening to have individuals sell back their guns that they're trying to ban back to the government. Some of the politicians who are on board with both or either of these measures are Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, and Beto O'Rourke. Now, some basic gun control measures are good to have. However, more control over guns isn't the answer. What these individuals and many others fail to realize is that banning guns or limiting the types of guns people can buy will not keep criminals from getting those guns. Look at how banning drugs has gone. People will still find a way to buy drugs and use them illegally. They don't care that there's laws against drug use. The same goes for criminals. They will still find a way to get a gun and use it. As of June this year, 94% of mass shootings have been in a gun-free zone, according to crimeresearch.org. Criminals will find the resources to get what they want. Also, something else to note that is important is the right to bear arms is an amendment right that we as citizens of the United States have, and banning guns would be violating that right. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. Something does need to be done about violence though. So if more gun control isn't the answer, then what is? Mental health. I think it is important to state that if someone is suffering from a mental illness, that does not make them dangerous. What is important to decipher is when individuals suddenly act withdrawn, odd, and strange out of nowhere. It is also important to assess the person and their mental state so they can get the help they need before things escalate and anything bad happens. There was actually a shooting recently here in Santa Clarita where we live, and the shooter had a girlfriend, he was in the student body, he had a lot of things going for him, he was on the track team, but a few weeks before he started to act very weird and withdrawn, and people didn't take it seriously, and then obviously something happened. He did have some mental health issues, so as you can see, it is important to assess people. Again, not saying everyone who deals with mental health issues are dangerous. I'm just saying that we need to be aware of those red flags. I think that anyone who commits a crime has some form of mental illness. They may be aware that what they are doing is wrong, but they are not mentally stable. No mentally stable person would do something so awful if they were mentally healthy. We see mental health issues more than ever in today's society. If violence is rooted in mental health, then what factors play in someone becoming so mentally ill they perform an awful violent action? According to medlineplus.gov, trauma can play a huge part. This is why it is so important to make sure people get help and to cope and deal with trauma correctly. High stress can also play a factor in mental health issues. A big setback in mental health, according to independent.co.uk, is also social media. Social media is a place where people can get bullied on top of being bullied at school or at work or other places. It can be a dark and depressing place if not used in a healthy way. Violent video games, movies, and pornography also impact an individual's mental health. These sources of violent media are distorting and shaping people's thoughts. In an article about the topic, it stated that the majority of studies show that extensive exposure to media violence is a risk factor for aggressive thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and I believe that that is very true. How can we address mental health and prevent violence? Well, first, make sure that those who are suffering from mental health issues are getting the proper treatment and care without judgment. Second, make sure individuals who have trauma heal properly and get help if and when needed. Thirdly, talk with kids about proper and healthy uses for social media. Also talk to kids about bullying and make sure they aren't being bullied or bullying others. Adults can also take this advice to heart as well. And lastly, make sure children and teens aren't overexposed to violence and limit the amount of time that they spend playing video games, and adults can also take this to heart as well. In conclusion, it's obvious to see that guns are not the root cause for violence. It is much more complicated than that. Banning some guns and applying more gun control is not the answer. Criminals will always find a way to get guns or other weapons to hurt people. As you can see, mental health stability is a major issue in this society. If we can't accept that and do something about it, violence will only get worse. Gun control will not prevent violence, and the sooner you see that, the sooner we can focus on the cause and take the action needed. What each of us can do is educate others on the matter and take the list of preventative measures for mental health to heart. This is where we need to start in decreasing violence.